Hello and welcome everybody. It has been a while since I've spoken about myself and what has been going on in my life. And for that my apologies, things just didn't work out. Today I want to discuss the topic of trauma. But before I do that, I want to put out the usual disclaimers. I was born in 1980 and the knowledge about autism, the knowledge about trauma, the knowledge about how to raise your child was not as developed as it is now. As such, it might seem as if a lot of things are caused or have been caused by my parents. However, I am 100% convinced that my parents, in all their good intentions, have been victims of trauma themselves. And as the saying goes, trauma is passed on to next generation. Yes, they were and responsible. Yes, they raised me. However, in the end, they are not responsible. They are victims as well. So, having that said, and without further ado, let's begin. Today I want to talk to you about trauma. As over the last half year, I have been working with my ambulant caretaker in trying to make an inventory of what is going on. And there's a lot going on. First of all, let's go back to the 80s, my early life. I was adopted. I have been in the hospital for the first few years of my life a lot of times, and back then parents could not stay around like they can now, so a lot of lonely moments alone in the hospital as an infant. At a young age we also experienced a tragic loss in our family. Back then, of course, it was not known that I am autistic, so my parents often thought that I was acting weird. I wasn't able to express myself properly, to explain myself properly, so a lot of issues I had were, blamed on me because I was being difficult. And as mentioned earlier, knowledge about properly raising your child and respecting a child's limits was a thing that wasn't really discussed or thought about in the 80s either. So until a certain age I was forced to shake hands, give the aunts a kiss at birthdays, all those kind of things which an autistic child really doesn't like doing. I was socially awkward, did not make friends very easily. However, my parents thought that, you should go out, make friends, get into contact with people. So they pushed me. They pushed me to take classic dance lessons, because that was good for my development. Only to realize week in, week out, that nobody wanted to dance with me, and that the teacher had to ask one of the better dancers if she wanted to dance with me, because nobody else wanted to. So I ended up dancing every week with somebody who really didn't want to dance with me, but who had to do it with because the teacher asked. And I can go on with more and more examples. However, let's leave it at that for now. So, what did it cause, and what do I know? To be completely honest and blunt, it made me a walking trauma. Though I have not been officially diagnosed yet with PTSS, me and my caretaker were pretty much convinced that I am stuck and full with one trauma after the other. Nowadays, we know that the first few years of a child's life, in order to develop bonds with people, in order to develop connections with people, current knowledge about raising a child dictates that you should not push a child beyond its limits and beyond its desires to touch or be intimate with people, as forcing a child to be intimate with people, whether it be kiss on a birthday or shaking hands, and going against the will of that child, only teach the child to learn that their opinion does not matter. Their feelings do not matter, because you have to do it. And instead of being allowed to sit in my room, do my thing, and process everything that happened during the day, my parents insisted that I go out and play, and that I be social and such. Which I really wasn't, and which I really didn't want to. However, I did. And with the example of the dance lessons I had to take, made me more and more aware that I was different. I wasn't only adopted, but I was different, and people looked at me different. People treated me different. For what reason, I did not know. Right now, of course, I know that despite any trauma I had back then already, I'm autistic, and social things were simply not my thing. And yet, I kept doing what my parents asked, because I wanted, and I still want, to be a good son, of whom my parents would be proud one day. Suffice to say, I failed hopelessly in that task. However, it's still one of my main motivations of going on. And I still don't think my parents realize how much they are a focus in my life, despite the fact that I prefer to be alone and have contact with absolutely nobody at times. Or most of the times, to be honest. Which brings me to the next part of this video, the traumas itself. One of the first things I now realize was that from a very early age I already developed a form of hypersexuality. I assume the teacher thought I was in early puberty very fast. However, in hindsight, I now realize that at a very young age already, a form of hypersexuality started to come over me. And should those whom I've pushed too far in my past, in my youth, hear this, then please know that I am very, very sorry for back then. My limits were not respected, and it took me a very long time before I realized and learned how to respect the limits of other people. It also instilled an urge of not wanting to be here, moving away, getting out, and that later developed in my longing for a consensual non-consent kink. For those who do not know what that means, it's a kink where you consent, where you give the approval to someone to do things to you do not consent to normally. In other words, to keep looking for the same sensation experience of having my limits trampled and crossed. Just as someone who came out of an abusive relationship has a high chance of ending up in another abusive relationship again. And last but not least, it turned me into a people pleaser, to the point that I eagerly disregard myself and my own needs for the benefits of others if I feel they need it. Whether that is a person or whether that's my cat. Whether or not it is detrimental for my own well-being, finances and mental health. Question then is, what do we do about it? Well, I'm on waiting lists, and I hope that maybe in September or October I'll get a call that I can start my therapy. And knowing it, and knowing why, and the background does help in preventing me from doing very crazy stuff at the moment. However, it remains a daily struggle for me. Would it have taken the turns it has if I was not autistic? Most likely. I would have been able to express myself better, we would have been able to talk more about things, and the trauma would likely be less severe, if any at all. However, things are as they are, and I cannot change that. I'm happy I've got a psychiatric nurse visiting me every week. That helps. And I hope I'm number 1 on the waiting list very soon. And with that, I wish to end this video. Please subscribe, hit the like button and share if you think somebody else might have a use of this knowledge. I will link some literature in the description of this video so you can read up more on it and hear it from somebody else as well. Thank you for listening. Hope to see you soon.